Yeah. So there we go. He's put it in place. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Conrad was just explaining that one of the other guys on the team, Michael Heathcote, who's based down in the south of England, is currently in San Francisco, and he's just got COVID. So that's put a kind of spanner in his works, because he's there at the pleasure of his millionaire son and daughter-in-law, and they were about to go off to Hawaii. So I don't know what he's going. I don't. It might put a bit.
It's got 2 or 3 weeks to get over it before they go.
He'll need to. If it was anything like what I had, he'll need 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say I'm completely over it now. And I got it on Boxing Day, so that's nearly a month. That's nearly a month ago.
Wow.
I still got a cough. And I would say that I'm only got 80% of the energy that I had before.
Right.
But you know, it's slowly improving, and it's fortunate my wife is a therapist, so she's in the kind of healthcare business. You know, so I get a whole load of supplements every day to take, and I occasionally get some sympathy, but. But not too much, apparently.
So, do you feel that the report has put some good points across then, or?
No, I found it great. I thought it was really good. I particularly found it useful, the sections where you've highlighted people of interest, politicians, academics, you know, potential funders, and that kind of thing gives you a short list of people that you can contact, and that's great. So that was good. I thought the whole balance of it was good. And
do you want me to? Oh, sorry. Do you want me to continue doing more of it? I've got 2 other reports. It's in progress.
Yeah, keep it going. I mean, I think I don't know whether I haven't really talked to Conrad about this yet, but one of the things that we could do is to pass that report along to our contact in Hallam University in Martin Howarth. We haven't talked about whether we would do that or not, Conrad. Have you got a view on it?
No, I thought we could. Yeah, I was happy to do that.
Yeah, because I
think there was somebody else contacted him a couple of weeks ago about the idea of fish farming and using the dropping or using insects to feed the fish, and then a similar idea to the one that Al proposed. But I thought that Al's whole symbiotic approach was much more interesting, actually.
Yeah.
The fish farming was only a start of something, whereas there's much more to it, and Al's been working on it for quite a long time, he said. And I thought that was the kind of project that the university might be really interested in, or we could do without them, you know, if they're not interested. But we've got to build in on some equipment. Yeah.
There was you won't imagine, but there's another civil member who was pretty high-ranking guy in one of the big consultants, American consultants, business consultants called Arthur D. Little, who his focus was on industries. One industry producing the feedstock for another industry. So you had a steel works, and the output for the steel works or the waste from the steel work goes to another business where they do different refining, and you know, you have a group of these businesses where the net result is that you get 3 or 4 different products, and you get a very minimal amount of waste out at the end. And that's a principle which I think
it's crucial, isn't it?
It is crucial. It's actually very difficult. It's very difficult for people to implement, because most companies, is the way most companies work. They just have a single track focus on what it is that their shtick is. Whether that's whatever it is, making cars or whatever, and they don't really notice what what goes out the door every day.
We're in the river.
Yeah, absolutely. They notice what goes out the door on the front door, but they don't notice really what goes out the door on the back door, or really some of the things that come into the building on the cost of utilities and things like that. So I think that principle is very good, but it's very difficult to start down that route. But I think if you have it as a principle to apply, then you can go that road.
I will have thought about how we start it, for sure.
See, my view is, this is my experience, and I was writing up some of my kind of history going back to when I was in my 20s, which was 50 years ago, and what I've come there's a few things that I've come to realize that work for me anyway, and it's 2 things. One is to have a big vision, so you have your kind of eyes on the horizon and above. You have a long distance aim, but what you also have is you notice what's down at your feet. So what is it that's lying around? And really the aim is to try and get a pathway from those 2 places, from where you are today to that vision out in the future. And it's like you need to hold both of them in equal balance. Well, this is what I found about what works. So this is what I like about what you're doing, Al, is that that this could be part of a very big vision, but you're also down at a point where you're doing practical stuff. You're doing stuff, you're making stuff, you're putting things together, you're trying things out, and that's I think that's very much my experience, and certainly that's very much along the line of what I think actually works and produces satisfying results.
Yeah,
and I've been involved in at least 1 or 2 really big businesses, in hundreds of millions of pounds, which basically started out with an idea, and started out not as started out, you buy something for £1,000, something like that. That was the initial investment to get something going, and you keep at it. You raise money on that, you do develop that business, and 10 years later you've got something quite different. So I like all that. So that's and I think this is something that, from a Subud point of view, this is something that I'm always trying to push, is that we should be encouraging each other. And that literally means giving each other courage. And courage means taking a few risks. And again, one time in my life, I was a bit of a betting man on the horses, and I rarely lost. Because I didn't do it kind of blindly, because I have this other trait in me, which is a willingness to take risks. And then as soon as you take a risk, or commit to take a risk, you think, fucking hell, I better sort this out. I better actually work out and minimize that risk once I've made this decision to take it. And that works in picking race winners in horse races as well as it does in getting businesses started.
Development work.
And development work. I mean, you have to take a risk, but you also, you can't just be completely. I mean, this is the thing. At one time in my 30s, I got a private pilot's license, and I had a bit of money, and they say there are old pilots and there are bold pilots, but there are no old bold pilots. So in the end, it's okay to start off bold, but
You've got to be careful. Yeah.
you got to be careful. You know,
Yeah.
you can't end up like Douglas Bader, staying bold, end up
Flying
losing
under
your legs.
bridges.
Yeah,
Flying under bridges with 500 people on board. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. There's risky and then there's wild.
Well, we
So-
wanted to hear some more from Al, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well,
I'll see
today
you tomorrow, Al, won't I?
I've been, well, to be honest, Conrad, I mean, that report that I wrote were basically just listening to what you've been saying over the last year or so with thing, and I've just sort of gone and researched it thoroughly. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
me going 100 mile an hour. I couldn't get the thoughts down quick enough. Do you know what I mean? But today I've been doing something similar. You mentioned about thermal geoenergy and stuff like
yeah.
that. I'm in process of writing a report on how energy can be produced,
Good.
such as like wind, solar, geothermal, biodiesel, ethanol heaters, like that.
Hydrogen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one I didn't think of, to be honest, Conrad. Yeah, and I've just been looking at that, but I've also been looking at the government legislation around it and looking at what subsidies can be given towards it. I've listed all the government agencies that deal with that. I've listed all the MPs, all the professors and businesses that provide these services in the area, in the UK. And I've also I'm starting a report on carbon sequestering, because if you're going to put a business plan in, you're going to have to try and figure out ways of how that business is going to make money.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a big part of it would be carbon sequestering, carbon tax credits,
Mm-hmm.
where basically there's two ways of doing it. There's sequestering gas out of the atmosphere, at which point you've got to get verified. I've found all the companies, all the government bodies for that as well, to that come in and they do they verify the amount of carbon dioxide you're pulling out of the air, and then on a 5 yearly they pay one big lump sum for every ton of carbon dioxide you pulled out. But they also do a one called trapped carbon payments for soil generation. So if you're growing in a soilless medium, you're dealing with livestock and stuff like that, you're going to be producing a lot of byproduct waste, which is going to be soil. Do you know what I mean? It's in once you've grown your tomatoes, you've got rest of plant to get rid of, haven't you?
Yeah.
So they also do payments by the ton for the generation of soil. Do you know what I mean? So I've just thought it'd be an interest. I know this is talking end line thing, but again, I took the approach of your advice, Conrad. You said if you start off small, you won't generate interest. Do you know what I mean? If it ain't ambitious, nobody will want to be part of it. I mean, I totally agree with Lucas saying that you have got to start small just to get the understanding of the processes and learn what it is that it entails. For example, like, you know, you're not going to be able to do a business plan unless you can give accurate figures, and without running tests like a little bit of a mushroom farm or running a hydroponic system and seeing what can be gained out of it and scaled up, then you're not going to have the data that's needed. Do you know what I mean? It's to get confidence in investors. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, I think data is one of those. It's the gold of the modern era. The more data that you can collect, the more useful it is, and you know, that is the way forward. So right.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. I would love to see. I'd love to see something on energy and soil as well. I mean, relating to those. But I think what I mean, I think there's a market for what you're doing, which is taking almost any subject and doing research about it, it's been my experience that people pay big money for that. And it's not just companies, it's governments and local authorities. And I mean, we built best part of 30 hotels from scratch. Every single one of them needed a detailed feasibility study on the hotel market for that area.
Yeah.
And the end result of the feasibility study was a forecast occupancy and a capital requirement that went out for the first 3 years. Interestingly enough, we pay, this is in the middle 1990s. At that time, we paid £25,000 a pop for that information. So we, on 30 odd hotels, we paid well over £1 million on that. And I was never satisfied. And the banks, it was the banks that required us to do it. And I looked at their feasibility studies and I thought, they're just they're not really doing much in the way of research. You know, there's a lot of fluff in there, a lot of bulk.
Yeah.
And it was my practice to do our own market research alongside theirs and with our own forecasts of what the future occupancy could be.
Right, okay.
It was my experience that our figures were actually more accurate than their figures. We were closer to the reality than they were. But having said that, there is money to be made in that market. And I mean, you don't get to, I mean, the banks only had, I think there was only 2 companies that they allowed, that they actually respected, and they wouldn't have respected my, feasibility studies. They needed some third party to do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, would the banks respect, say, like a professor of the fields sort of opinion?
That's absolutely true. They would. Well, I think people do. I mean, if you can show an argument, this is the data, this is the source, and if the source of the data is like government data, if it's secure, if the source data is secure, then you apply some kind of a metric against the source, then people will view that. What's different, of course, is for banks. Banks, you know, they
don't want to take the blame for getting it wrong.
No, they
need somebody to blame if it goes wrong.
Absolutely.
And so they need somebody who's going to be there when somebody sticks a red flag up and says, "Who wrote that fucking report? That thing's gone belly up and we need somebody's balls in a bottle."
Well, actually, it's worse than that, because
they've got more than the balls,
Yeah, because I mean, this is the thing. This is the thing about real estate development is, I mean, that's it in Ireland now. Local authorities, building inspectors, they don't take shit. Planning officers don't take shit. I've got a project here now in Ireland. It's for 28 apartments in 3 little blocks. It's a relatively small little project, and I put it in for planning, and it now requires 8 different consultant reports. And we totaled up the total cost of all these consultant reports. I mean, my fee for the planning application, I think, was £2.5 grand. The fee for the consultant's report is now 75,000.
Wow.
Because you know, if you have to go to a consultant, the thing that they and I don't do this anymore, the thing that costs money for consultants is the professional indemnity, so that if they do get it wrong, then they've got an insurance policy behind them that will pay the compensation, and the compensation can be, extreme.
Okay.
So that's not to put off, but I think principle of what you're doing. Now, there's a whole that's up at that kind of tier where you're borrowing. We were even at that time we were borrowing 2.5 million of projects or something, 3 million of projects. There's a whole scale below that where you don't need that kind of level of accuracy. And that somebody like yourself doing this kind of market research, I think, for a company like us getting on and doing, attempting to do this thing, if we can back up what we say with data, then it gives a sense of confidence to anybody reading our literature to know that it's not just a matter of opinion. That there is a market for that, and you can actually do the kind of trail.
Yeah.
So I'm all for that, and I would really like that. And for me, it's of some value because the end result is something which we can use. What you've already done is something that is useful. You've given basically a list of 10, 12 people that we could contact. Now, we didn't have that before, and that's useful. And we will follow that up with people, it's not just blind. Somebody has done a little bit of research to say, well, these people are interested in what you might be doing. So that's valuable for us.
Right, okay.
I spoke to Mikhail, who we've met too, Mikhail van der Matten, about the work that you've been doing with the data you pick up from Amazon and eBay and so on. And for any product, you can identify who the main players are and how much they're selling their product and at what price. And he said, bloody hell, my son has a business selling mattresses. He makes mattresses and sells them. And he said he did his IT to get that kind of information. I said, well, what do you think that kind of information could be worth? He said, well, let's say it costs you 50 quid to write a one-page report and saying what's going on in the mattress market. He said, I think people have paid 350 to get that information. And I said, well, that's pretty good. He said, Roger, that's his son. He said, I'm sure you'd pay that kind of money for that kind of information.
Right.
Well, what a great business, there he is. I've got my first order. And
Mikhail is a known cheapskate. If he says 350, he will pay 500.
Yeah, Mikhail's the one that was in the aerospace business. And
Yeah.
Be careful. Be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. He's careful. I think that's absolutely right. And I think, well, but if you feel that you could do that for mattresses, well, there's a project which we can do. And if you want this, I did mention this this morning. I mean, we have a company, or actually, I'm not a director of it, but Conrad is a director of it, called Global Ventures Limited. It's done very little, but it's registered and it produces yearly accounts. You could use it as an umbrella
got a bank account,
bank account, in order to do that kind of business.
Right.
You don't have to do it personally. You can do it through the company, and it would, we could, if it would be GVL who would be billing the third party, and you would just get a fee. It would just pass the money over or take a certain amount of it just for the admin. But that's a way we could help in that. We could provide a little vehicle, and you don't need to worry about the legal side of it or the accounting or the billing or anything like that. That's something that we can do because both Mikhail and Michael is a chartered accountant, and Mikhail is he's ticking all the boxes project manager type.
Okay.
Yeah, and I did suggest this. Al import export. Al Limited or Enterprises
I
Limited.
think that's another way.
But we can pick that up a bit further if we want, you know. If we made a bit of money and had, I don't know, 100,000 or two. I mean, Al's already started doing this, looking at some products that you can pick up overseas and import them and sell them at a good margin via eBay or Amazon. Then you double your money and do it again, and then double the profit and do it again. So it shouldn't take too long, depending on how well the product sells. And if you had a bit of capital, I mean, you could just pick off the products you wanted to sell and do that. And as you know, I'm working with these guys in Elango. We've got people in every country, you know. I'm working with the ones in Europe at the moment. We could do this kind of thing, selling market information about products in different countries.
Right, okay.
And also start looking at the idea of importing stuff into other countries too. I mean, there might be an even bigger margin if you sell it in Germany, for instance.
Yeah, I'm just in the process of learning Google Sheets.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sort of creating a spreadsheet that does it. I was telling you about it the other day.
Yeah, you were, yeah.
I found two methods of gaining market information. One's called ARIs, which is automated. I can't remember what it stands for now, but it's an automated algorithm. It's like creating bots that do the collecting of data for you automatically on a weekly basis or whatever time basis that you set it to run. Do you know what I mean? So I've just purchased the AI scripting, API scripting program. So I mean, mates are trying to figure that out. Do you know what I mean? I'm not there yet, but there's another. If you know anybody who can program with COBOL, there's a method which is banned in most countries, but it's well used in England and legal, and it's called net scraping, where you can scrape market information from the entire web. So you can get a full overview of market information with it. Do you know what I mean? It's so
you need a hefty computer to do that, would you?
I'm not entirely sure, really. I know that it's like a COBOL spreadsheet. We use it data dumps into a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be creating a program that scrapes and dumps into spreadsheets for you. Do you know what I mean? It's I mean, there is companies that do this for you, but I'm assuming it'd be much better if you could be hands-on with it and
you need to know how to do it yourself, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, even if eventually you go to somebody else, but you still want to know how to work it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of new programs coming on. There's one called what is it, GPT? You know, which is a free software from the people who designed AlphaZero. AlphaZero is the computer algorithm, artificial intelligence, which beat the best chess players and then beat the best Go players. And they have made available the core software for free. And people are running it doing all sorts of things with it. And, you know, they supplied it at no cost in order for people to apply data to it so that it starts to accumulate real world data. And it's the kind of thing that you can get it to write your programs. You know, you can say, I want this to do A, B, C, and it will go along and produce a program for you. So, I mean, I think that is definitely the future of, you know, the use of AI in doing something useful, and those kind of things. And information, you know, that's what I mean, I would really think that's what information and reality are so close together. You know, the more information you have on something, the closer you are to the reality of it.
But we have to be clear, don't we? I mean, we've talked about many opportunities already tonight, and
Yeah.
we need to know clearly what the 3 or 4 things are that we want
Absolutely.
to pursue, and see if we can get the resources together for each of those things. And yeah, maybe continue writing now, and you'll get this clarity as we're going. You know,
So
we'll do what we can to help you.
Yeah, what are you suggesting then for next few steps then?
Well, maybe if we had a chart or a showing what the 4 areas are, you know, we've got the feedamillion, we've
Yeah,
got the market information section, which is completely different, and
yeah,
then you've got your actually growing mushrooms, and the 4th one you might say is this symbiotics, you know, how to grow things so that one thing feeds the next, you know,
yeah,
and you end up with 0 waste.
yeah. That sounds interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then we can, when we have this kind of meeting or conversation, we can talk about each one in turn and not get mixed up about which one we're talking about, or
yeah,
how we can move each one along. You know, I don't know what resources we need.
yeah. And do you think Tego would be interested in doing
I'm
this?
sure he would. I'm sure
Yeah.
he would. Well, don't you? I think he would, yeah.
I think he would, yeah.
I also think that Hadrian Branson, who's the guy I do Latian with in Gilderson, up the road here, he was talking to me the other day about he works as a surveyor, building surveyor, and
Yeah.
he's been put, well, they've dropped his salary by 20% so they don't make more people redundant. But he was talking about getting out and doing something different, and he was
Right.
saying that he's been spending the last few weeks looking at commodities and price changes, and
Right.
I thought, well, you know, he might be interested in joining to talk about this marketing information stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we, you know, I don't know. Lucas and I are also involved in regeneration in Sheffield, and we're looking for big money for that. And I thought if we had some good stories, your mate in York might be interested to have a visit from us when we have a bit more clarity and saying we're looking for the resources for this project or that project. And what have we got to have for you guys to be interested?
I think that they happily look at any business that they take on large clients and relatively small ones, from what I can gather.
Yeah.
I mean,
we're looking for money from them to invest in what we might want to do. I mean, Lucas worked out that, you know, in order to feed 100,000 people, 10% of what we are forecasting, you'd need something like £1 billion to buy the real estate and to build the infrastructure and all the rest of it to get this feed 100,000 going. And so that's big money.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
When we started with our hotel business, we decided we were going to build 20 hotels.
Yeah.
And straight away, the big boys with the big money got interested. When we were trying to cobble the money together to restore an old country house to make it into a hotel, nobody touched us with a bloody barge pole. I mean, they weren't at all interested. I mean, they knew that building 20 hotels was a risk, but they looked at us and they started to watch our track record, and we weren't asking for all the money on day one. We just thought we wanted it as we go along. And they were really interested. How can we help you with this, you know?
Right.
Yeah, on that, I think there's a salutary tale which is worth telling, is that, you know, as soon as we started this is a franchise product. And if you go to the franchise exhibition every year, there's representatives from the banks there. And we met the Royal Bank of Scotland franchise manager at the franchise exhibition, and clearly they weren't in the hotel business, they were in the restaurant business, and they were lending to other franchisees, but they were very keen to get into the hotel business because they have that's big money, and big money means big fees for the banks. So they were very keen, and they suggested that we should try and get at least a 10 hotel deal with Holiday Inn. So that was them. They were interested, and they would produce 65% of the money of the capital we all went through. We then made contact with a merchant bank, Close Brothers, who they were also interested. They were clients of they had a close relationship with the Royal Bank of Scotland, and being a merchant bank, they took in investment from clients. They had closed-end funds which lasted for 5 years. They need to make a profit. They need to invest in, and they were generally investing in real estate. So they were keen to provide most, but not all, of the equity requirement. So, you know, there we had 65% from the bank, and from Close Brothers, we got another, I don't know, 25%. And then it was up to us to find the last 10%. And, you know, we got some from the contractor, some from the architect, some from Holiday Inn, some from Bass, and we had to find some of it ourselves.
We had a good story, didn't we?
But we had a good story. So this is,
yeah.
And this, you know, and this then produced £500 million worth of real estate development. But it started off basically with
4 lads with nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, you know, Conrad says it's you know, it's £1 billion. Of course, it's £1 billion. But I could see that could start off just as easily in your basement as it could with somebody writing a check for £1 billion. In fact, nobody's going to write a check for £1 billion. They're not going to do it, not at this stage. But if you've got a few pilot projects working and you can prove that they're profitable, and it's cost you, I don't know, 100 grand to put it together, then it's at that stage you go to them and say, look, we've got this product, it's proven, here's the data, this is the site that we'd like to work on, you know, and we've got this agreement from the council on a rates holiday, and this agreement from the roads people that get a new motorway connection, all that kind of stuff. Then you can, we're interested in that. And it's a matter of putting a deal together, and it's never just one person, never just one route. It's a matter of constructing a gateway that is attractive to investors. That's basically what it is. And what is it that investors are looking for? They're interested in a new story. They're interested in making money. They're interested in, you know, starting out relatively small and being able to grow it to a bigger stage. So this has got all those elements to it, that you can start out small, you can grow big, and that you identified it there in your piece about different technologies for different things. The original feedamillion abstract that we worked on, which was generated out by the university, these guys in the University of Florida, they identified 8 separate technologies. You know, there were insects, there were leafy greens, there were mushrooms, there were pharmaceuticals, there were meat substitutes, there were bee substitutes.
It's the wrong way around, isn't it?
There we go. Feedamillion.
It's the wrong way around.
Yeah. Large. Well, this is, I mean, what I think, what we're doing, and this will probably, I think this will probably take 2 years. we want to get the idea out in Sheffield, in amongst the big hitters. That's the mayor and the city council and the regional council. We want to get them,
the MP.
and the MPs for these areas, that this is a good idea, that this hub is a good idea. And
an opportunity not to be missed.
absolutely.
If we don't do it, some other is going to do it.
And somebody else will. And people are already starting to look at some things on the similar side. So this is something, the particular pitch that we're going for in the beginning of February, which is this guy at Hallam University doing the pitch. It's a two-stage pitch. Well, I hope this is what he's going to do. Is it's selling the big vision, which is the £1 billion deal. But what we're looking for is $500,000 to do a pilot project, or to do a
$750,000.
$750,000. Yeah, we've got it up to $750,000 to do a couple of pilot projects.
3 pilots.
And so this is the kind of thing, is that they're sold on the big vision. Yeah, I can see that would be a big vision. But all they're wanting is this
minimum investment at the front.
Minimum investment at the front, which will run a project under university auspices for a couple of years, producing high quality data. And, that's the kind of process.
So how clever they are for investing in it.
Yeah. So, the Hallam University get this kind of money from them all day long, for all sorts of things, because that's where they get money. They look at this, they look about how to get an extra 10% out of a rice husk, or, to make a bit more profit for Nestle's, or that kind of thing. And, they're funded by central government, but they're also funded by local authorities. So this is just another pitch for them. So maybe we will, maybe they'll be successful, maybe they won't, I don't know. But then we're not depending on that. But this is one route that we're going down.
Yeah, that's, do you mind? Do you want me to help you with this, or do you just?
Well, I think I think, and I've said this to Conrad, I would like to. Since you've come on the scene here as a potential, route, is I think there is, if we can get, my view is we're trying to negotiate with this guy about whether it's 1 pilot project or 3 pilot projects. We're trying to get him to pitch for 3 pilot projects, because I think 1 is, what's the point of doing 1? But 3 allows 3 different technologies. And they can actually, after 18 months, they can actually say, well, this one works better than that one. This one is, maybe better long term. So it depends. If we can get permission to do 3, then I think we will try and run one of them with your expertise. But
we've also got this feasibility thing going too.
Yes.
We've got to identify the sites, possibilities, and what it means to build the infrastructure for feeding 100,000 people.
Well, that's the other thing, is that even if we only get 1, that the 1 is not just for the pilot project, it's the one for doing the feasibility study for the big project. Yeah. And the feasibility is to identify a site or range of sites which have an energy profile, whether that's wind, solar,
it's got to be fail-safe. It has to be fail-safe, so it'll be a bit of each, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's something
what we're trying to do is build something like a franchise that can go to other countries and use the potential energy there. So if it goes to a hot country with a lot of sunshine, we could use solar. But if we're going to the North Pole, we have to go geothermal or something like that.
And we've got contacts. Conrad's got a lot of contacts in Africa, for instance, in Sudan and Malawi and Angola and places like that, and where the energy cost will be much less, but also less reliable, and a little bit more politically unstable. But hey, you might find that one of these countries will take it on. but that's
Well, and also you get not a UK government backing for taking them on in some of these dodgy countries, and
there is.
UN backing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's such a big project. It's not like opening a barber shop, you know, where the boys can come round the next day and say, we want half of whatever you charge for every haircut.
Well, this is what the World Bank does. World Bank,
Yeah.
and IMF, and aid agencies,
all of that.
and UN agencies. That's the kind of things that they do.
You've
And
got your protection there.
and we're not there yet, but that is something that I can see.
That's the point. I mean, we're not just building this to feed Sheffield. It's a thing that can be replicated in other places. You know?
Yeah.
And make a serious.
And that would really then
serious
put
impact.
Sheffield on the map.
Yeah.
Put one of these all over the place and have the source of expertise in Sheffield, or and build it up and up and up. And it doesn't have to be Sheffield. If they don't want it, we'll find somewhere else.
Yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? It's,
It is, yeah. Exciting, I think.
is there what you want me to do in particular then, or is there?
Just carry on following what you're feeling.
Well, I think this is right. I think I wouldn't want to divert you too much, other than give you the impression that you have some support out here, and you know, for encouragement and for maybe some practical things, you know, like company structures and billing and bank accounts and things like that. If you want that, if you find that it will be useful.
Okay. GVL will have a number of projects, and Olympex Enterprises can be one of them to start with. And it will be accounted for quite separately within GVL, so you can see what's going on and you'll get the money out of it that you need and so on. It's just saves us a job and lets the world know that we're working together.
But I think I think the particular idea that Conrad's brought today is of, you know, within the group of four of us, or five of us, you know, there is already a market for something of what you could do, you know, where you can make a bit of money for doing it, you know, and that's on mattresses in Holland. You know, if that is of interest, then there's a little bit of a project that could be done. And I'm a great fan of starting somewhere.
Even if it's Pontefract.
Even if it's in Pontefract.
Well, that's where the first
Pontefract is, in my mind, it's known for its capes.
Oh, well, no, it's known for its first Quaker bank.
And I'm sure the Romans did something interesting in Pontefract. But...
Yeah, they did, but you can't write about it, you know. So I'll see you tomorrow anyway, Al.
Yeah, no worries, Conrad. I might have to finish off a little bit earlier because I've got to see my self-employment coach at Job Centre. It's every 3 months. Do you know what I mean?
You should have invited him to this meeting.
Do you get? I mean, I went through this process. I know how long ago. About 8 years ago in Ireland, and I had a period of being self-employed and then unemployed, and I had that, and there was a grant available for starting a business, and you could get a guaranteed social welfare benefits for a year, 18 months, and a capital grant for starting a business. I don't know whether you do that. Whether they do that.
I've not been made aware of that. I have asked about it, and they just sort of like shook their head and dismissed it. But I do believe that there's a company called Step Up. I've been trying this company in Wakefield called Enterprise Nation. But if I'm honest, they're absolutely useless. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, they're all people who were unemployed.
Yeah, it's they've not given me one useful direction.
What time are you seeing the guy tomorrow, Al?
It's quarter, no, 22:12 it is, so,
So 11 you have to leave, really.
yeah.
Is he across the road in that?
It's road, yeah, Conrad, so.
Yeah, so we, do you want to, I don't know, what's your time like in the morning? Do you want to start at 10?
Yeah, that might be better, yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there for 10 then. I
No.
guess Tegu's not around, and I guess that Kevin might, 10's a bit early for Kevin, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't think Kev will be coming, to be honest. It's
I must phone him.
yeah. He's building a shed. He's gone into shed building mode. No.
Okay. Okay, well, I'll see you at 10. Is there
No.
anything else anybody wants to say? I mean,
No, not really.
these market information, does it come by country? Do you have to do it for Germany and you have to do it separately for Holland?
Yeah,
Or-
you have to. Yeah, you have to search each market separately.
Okay.
There is. It's not a big thing. Like, you just select which market you want to search on. So if you do one query on say the UK market, it's just a matter of clicking a drop down box and searching the.
Yeah,
straight.
but that's good. It's good, Al,
Yeah.
because if he wants the information about the UK, it's 350 quid. But we could give him the information for Holland for another 350 quid.
Yeah.
And we could give him the information for Germany for another 350 quid.
Just a sec. Phone call. Got Griff messaging me, ringing me then on Messenger.
Okay, well let's call it a time.
And I'll see you tomorrow at 10.
No worries. I'll see you later. Nice chatting to you
Yeah,
guys
all the
anyway.
best to you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Hey, mate.
Okay, I'm going to end this.